After a short few months since the domain's registration, P4RE is now confirmed to be a thing, with a short trailer from Summer Game Fest. And I do mean short. There is barely anything here beyond some panning establishment shots of prominent areas, the iconic TV tower, and a brief glimpse at the protagonist. All things that feel like they lack substance on their own and make this reveal feel lukewarm. Especially with that title, Persona 4 Revival. An overly generic one that doesn't have the gun-based impact of Reload, or the fun TV-based gimmicky one of Rerun and Rewind that fans had been guessing at as the title for a while. And let me just say that that is a terrible RE for Persona 4 especially. When the domain name was leaked, I did mention that the close proximity of p3re.jp to the trailer for Persona 3 Reload gave a precedent for confirmation sooner rather than later. But if so, I'd expect a longer trailer, and from glossing over the footage, a lot is lacking, making me feel like this is a showcase of early assets rather than the finished product. Furthermore, at the time of its reveal, Raito Remastered Mystery of the Soulless Army was less than 2 weeks away, which just makes this timing feel nonsensical. Soul Hackers 2 was announced amidst the Persona 25th, and was entirely overshadowed by that anniversary, just as SMT typically is beneath the monolith that is Persona. Whether or not you like these games, it is an objective fact that Persona has resonated with a wider audience, while the rest of the SMT catalog is comparatively niche in taste. Which of course begs the question, why reveal it now instead of after Raito at minimum, so as to avoid negatively impacting Raito's sales? While it is possible that someone decided to gamble a quick peek at Persona so that it could build up hype for another SMT game, especially if the trailer is only a brief glimpse such as this, the lack of any similarities that could draw in the Persona audience to Raito, namely the pseudo-detective aspect and shared demon designs, makes this either unlikely or not communicated to the people making the reveal trailer. Meaning that the most likely explanation was just that Atlus wanted to confirm it sooner rather than later, and from all appearances, it just didn't look ready. I've mentioned before that I didn't feel that Persona 4 needed an HD remaster, and that ones for Persona 1 and 2 or else Persona 6 would have been preferable. Persona 4 is a masterpiece as is, and is readily available, having been ported to all platforms during the Persona 25th. This is why I am not really excited for this game, and contrary to that one commenter that I am now convinced was a bot I foolishly got into an argument as I tried to clear this up, I never was and am not defending its existence. Persona 4 Golden is in my Steam library, I can play it at any time, and Persona 4 is relatively easy to emulate if I have or want to, which is why I feel that a remake is kind of pointless. Many Atlus games over the last decade or so feel like they are a bit lacking in identity beyond association. SMT4 Apocalypse is a mixing pot of various ideas from across the series that results in a continuation of SMT4 that misses the point and nuance of said game and feels more like a glorified tribute to SMT2. Soul Hackers 2 similarly feels disassociated to the original Devil Summoner Soul Hackers, and the original SMT5, now only the canon of creation, was literally Nocturne Light but without any grasp on what made Nocturne good. These remakes similarly feel ironically derivative through their nature as remakes. Persona 3 Reload's reception from passionate fans is that it missed the point of the original. A story pertaining to the fleeting mortality of people, their innocence, and youth through the tropes and story structure of a Greek tragedy. And I feel like Persona 4 is going to be the same. Not the definitive edition, but a pretty looking variation made by a team trying to appropriate the vision of the original. A Scooby-Doo pseudo-detective story that critiques how true crime can dehumanize the victims while exalting the perpetrators, reducing a very real tragedy into a spectacle. A story where the mystery isn't so much the point as it is a hook and setting detail, that nonetheless allows for the individual perspectives of those involved to have the pieces to the puzzle that finally fit into place once it dawns on them where to look and why the truth had eluded them, even though it was in plain sight all along. Persona 4 resonates across the generations as is and doesn't need a remake because it still feels relevant, despite the original being released almost 2 decades ago. And the surface level reading to the original while prioritizing design decisions that undercut them for the sake of modern design sensibilities present in Reload gives me more pessimism than optimism that Persona 4 Revival will be any different in that respect. This is why I would personally prefer Persona 6, SMT6, or Persona 5 Arena, as I feel that there is more potential in those games versus the innate vapidness of trying to simply remake an already completed story. Particularly given the fact that Episode Aegis, a campaign available with the base Persona 3 FES, was released as DLC for Reload, which means that any additions to Golden like the Adachi Social Link could similarly be restricted behind a post-launch pay cap for no real reason other than to separate the remake's original and enhanced re-release content.